Hi, my name is Austin Zoot, and welcome to the Zoot Perspective Web Congregation. This week we start the book of Deuteronomy, the fifth and final book of the Torah. This is a complicated book. There's a lot that goes into it, and one of the reasons is that unlike the other books of the Torah, this appears to be written by a very, very different source. It appears to be written in a very different style with very different meaning and intention behind it. The other four books tell the story of the people of Israel, what would eventually become the Jewish people. It sees a trajectory of from creation all the way through the Avot v'Imahot, the ancestors, all the way through Egypt and into the Exodus and then wandering in the desert. All told as a form of narrative. There are a couple of different voices that come up throughout that narrative, but as a general rule, it is a single story told from a variety of voices, but telling a story, telling a narrative of who these people are and where they came from. The book of Deuteronomy serves as somewhat of a summary of what the first four books said. Where was this journey? Where did we go? Moses standing on a mountain telling the people the final telling of the story before they were to head to the promised land. It's very difficult because we are told that the Torah is a divinely inspired text. We are told that God gave us the Torah, but in this fifth book we see a very, very different voice, and a voice that looks like it's reading the past four books. Many biblical archaeologists and scholars and biblical thinkers believe that there are a variety of sources that go into writing the entirety of the Torah, but specifically, there's one writer who is looked at to be the person who wrote Deuteronomy. There's one writer who's known to be the person who wrote Deuteronomy. Now, this is an enormous challenge for us when we're trying to evaluate the value of the Torah in conjunction with the lack of divine inspiration or the lack of divine giving that we're so used to. We think, or we're taught, that God gave the Torah, but in this case we're learning that it's quite possible that not only was the Torah written by man, but also that it was written by a variety of men and at different periods in time, different eras of history, each saying different things and each having different intentions. Now, entire books can be written on the four-source hypothesis, which is the sort of basis of what I'm talking about today. Entire books can be written on the literary anthologies of where we got this text, but I don't want to talk about that right now. What I want to talk about is, what do we do with a text that may or may not be historical fact, that may or may not have historical validity? How do we internalize any kind of value when, in the grand scheme of things, we're not even sure if what it's telling us is true history or a form of literary novelization? And the answer is, it doesn't matter. The values that we get from the Torah, the values that we learn throughout the book, are worth internalizing. They're things that we can take in, that we can find meaning in, and that's where we get the value. Whether or not Moses existed, whether or not Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, whether any of these characters are historical fact, isn't important in the grand scheme of things, because what we're actually looking at is we're actually looking to find moral, ethical, and meaningful value out of the stories and lessons and laws that we get out of this text. These people may have existed, they may not. More likely than not, they didn't exist. And we as Jews, we as people of the book, Jews, Christians, Muslims, anyone who chooses to use this text as a form of spiritual fact, whether it's historical fact or not, spiritual fact can be important as long as you're internalizing and finding meaning, and as long as we're being thoughtful. When we say things like, well, the Bible tells me so, unless we understand why the Bible is telling us things and why we're understanding things the way we are, we're falling ignorant to the incredible scope of what it means to be biblical scholars and to really internalize what this text says. There's an incredible amount that the Bible has to teach us, whether it's a historical document or a novelization or a fable of sorts. We have an incredible amount to learn, but we have to learn where it comes from and why it's so important to us before we ever have a chance to truly interact with the text in a meaningful and thoughtful way. This is a hotly contested issue, especially in Jerusalem where I am now. The Orthodox community does not see the validity of the four-source hypothesis, whereas Reform Judaism needs to have some kind of answer as to where this text text came from and why it's so important to us, despite some of the challenges and some of the conundrums that it gives us. I find it incredibly interesting and incredibly meaningful. I would love to hear what you have to say. Please feel free to leave a comment below and add your voice to the many voices talking about where we got our Torah and why it's so important to us. Thank you so much. If you're enjoying the work I'm doing, please stay tuned. See thezootperspective.com, where all of my incredible information and sharing can be found. You don't want to miss out on all the incredible things coming out of my work and my learning as I learn how to develop my my media skills. So thank you so much. If you're liking what I'm doing, also feel free to donate to my GoFundMe page. The GoFundMe page can be found on my website as well as in the link below. Thank you also for the patience as I'm working through some technical challenges now that I'm in Jerusalem. The studio back home is no longer an option, so we're finding new places, new and exciting information to share, new ways of sharing it, so stay tuned as we continue to hone what it is to make this video and to put out our product. Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.